Did you just finish building your League Start character and are looking for a more powerful build? Are you tired of the endgame builds that most streamers and content creators are talking about that cost more than 100 divines? Don't worry, because I got you covered. The Ice Nova of Frostbolt Hierophant build has an easy, one-button playstyle with no aiming required, is tanky enough to handle all content except maybe tier 70 maps and uber pinnacle bosses, has an insanely fast clear speed, and most importantly, doesn't break the bank to build. In this video, I'm going to tell you everything you need to know to decide whether this is the right build for you and how to make this build for yourself if you're interested. I will also link my path of building in the description so you have all the information about the build in greater detail. At its core, the build revolves around the Ice Nova of Frostbolt Transfigured Gem, which make it so that the Ice Novas will be generated around any Frostbolts that we shoot out instead of around our character. We then pair the Frostbolt skill with a Greater Volley support gem to increase the number of Frostbolts generated per cast by 4, and put them in a Kitava's Thirst helmet so that there is a 50% chance that Frostbolts will automatically cast whenever we use more than 100 mana in a single skill. Because there is only a 50% chance, to maximize consistency, we stack increased cast speed to as high as possible and utilize Spell Echo to double cast Ice Nova Frostbolt, which is our trigger skill. To maximize damage, we take advantage of the recently buffed Archmage support gem to scale the damage of our Ice Novas by stacking as much maximum mana as possible in our build. As a result, we only need to hold down Ice Nova Frostbolt during mapping and watch everything around us getting absolutely destroyed. There are rare occasions where you will get very unlucky and the Frostbolts will not come out after holding down Ice Nova for like 1 second, so you will feel quite constipated when that happens. But most of the time this is quite consistent, so you should be completely fine. Conveniently, the high maximum mana that we are stacking for damage becomes one of the major defensive layers for us as well. By taking Mind Over Matter and Divine Guidance, half of the damage to our life is taken from mana instead. We then use a Timeless Jewel to gain access to Corrupted Soul, which spreads half of the damage hitting our energy shield to life and mana instead. Because of that, our energy shield, life and mana are being hit simultaneously when we are taking damage, forming an extremely large hit pool that enables us to survive a lot of damage. We also take energy shield leech, life leech, and a lot of mana regeneration to constantly replenish the resources, and take one of the leech mastery so that 10% of our leech is instant. This, combined with our high damage output, make it so that our energy shield and life are always top up whenever we get to do damage. However, that also means that the build will be quite vulnerable when there is no way to deal damage, like during bosses in vulnerable phases or against enemy with very high damage reduction. Yes, Soul Eater, I'm talking about you. To take it up a notch, we make use of the Law Weave plus Eternal Damnation combo to set our maximum resistance to 78% and reduce all elemental damage by a massive 39% when we cap our chaos resistance. Other than that, we also need an Immutable Force Jewel that has at least 931% stun and block recovery, which will make getting stun not an issue for us when we have Soul of the Brine King as the major pantheon. For Elemental Ailments immunity, we simply run Purity of Elements on Eternal Blessing so that it is up all the time without reserving mana. We talk about some of the uniques used in this build, so I will not repeat them unless there is some specifics that is worth mentioning. For example, the Law Weave can roll between 76 to 78% maximum resistance, and the difference is actually quite significant. I recommend getting it at least 77% and 78% if you can afford it. Eternal Damnation can roll from negative to positive 8 chaos resistance, so do be careful when you buy them based on how much chaos resistance is needed in your build to cap it. Moving on to other uniques, we have an Anathema ring to allow us to use 4 curses when we have Conviction of Power in our Ascendancy. Other than that, a Taste of Hate flask to convert some physical damage into gold. Try to get one with higher physical damage taken as coal if you have the budget for it. We also have a Watcher's Eye with percentage damage taken recouped as mana. This is important so that we don't run out of mana too quickly. If you can afford one that also has physical damage taken as coal, that would be even better, but it is extremely expensive. For the Timeless Jewel, just get one with Sacrifice to Doriani, so you will have access to Corrupted Soul. Other than that, if you can get any stats that are useful for the build in the notes, that would be a bonus, such as percentage armor increase, chaos resistance, and lightning damage leech. Lastly, we also have an Energized Armor Jewel for some easy armor. If you can afford the newly added Perendus Pack Jewel with percentage armor, that would be better but more expensive too. Moving on to the rare gears. The wands are just profane wands with spell damage, maximum mana, and crafted cast speed. You can either gravecraft this easily or buy any profane wand as a base and spam Essence of Woe until you hit a good roll on maximum mana and an open suffix to craft increased cast speed. If you are unfamiliar with how to gravecraft with low effort, I will link my gravecrafting guide in the description for you to check out after this. For gloves, boots, and belt, you are looking for dexterity, maximum mana, maximum life, chaos resistance, and any elemental resistance would be a bonus. You can either gravecraft this or buy a fractured base with any of the stats and spam Essence of Envy for chaos resistance until you hit the other stats that you want. For the boots, you will also want movement speed for more quality of life, although it is not mandatory like many other builds. This is because you will mostly be moving around by casting Frostblink of Wintribus. We are using one large cluster jewel that has increased lightning damage as the enchantment, and Prismatic Heart and Scintillating Idea as 2 of the passive skills. The rest of the stats can be whatever that you can find. We also have 3 jewel sockets. You can use them to cover any resistances or attributes that you need, or simply stack more maximum mana and maximum life. But it is very important that one of them should have Corrupted Blood immunity as an implicit. Finally, for the flask, we have a Granite Flask with increased armor, Silver and Quicksilver Flask with increased cast speed, and since we do not have Bleed immunity, I'm using a Life Flask to help with that. All utility flasks have use when charges reach full and have either reduced charges per use or increased maximum charges so that they can be used twice before recharging. This is good for sticky situations when you have to use your flask manually. However, do not overpay for these flasks on the market. You can very easily craft them yourself with Orb of Alteration, Orb of Augmentation, and Instilling Orbs. Just buy the cheapest level 84 flask that you can find and start rolling. Wow, that was a lot of information. Let's take a break and maybe you can tell me about how your day has been so far. Just kidding, we are moving to the skill gems. For the 6th link on your body armor, we are supporting Ice Nova of Frostbolt with gems that increase its cast frequency and damage. Pretty straightforward. The support gems also increase the mana cost of Ice Nova of Frostbolt, which has to be more than 100 to trigger the Kitava Thirst effect. On the Kitava's Thirst helmet, besides Frostbolt and Greater Volley, we are also running the Enfeeble and Elemental Weakness curses. Since we are casting so often, this will always be applied to all enemies around us, causing them to deal less damage and take more. We have Arcanist Brand on one of our wands with the Conductivity and Punishment curses. This is why we need the Anathema ring. On the other wand, we have Sigil of Power and Purity of Elements supported by Eternal Blessing. Sigil of Power and Arcanist Brand are only needed for bosses or harder to kill mobs, so we can have some extra defenses from Sigil of Power and deal extra damage with the help of the curses on Arcanist Brand. On one of the 4 links, we are running Arcane Cloak on automation, supported by increased duration and Arcane Surge for even more damage. With this setup, we can just set it and forget it, and Arcane Cloak will have more than 60% of uptime, which is really strong offensively and defensively. If you ever find yourself running out of mana in the middle of a fight, simply turn off the automation skill to allow your mana to recover. Then, on another 4 links, we are running Frostbolts of Wintry Blast with faster casting support and Clarity on Arrogance support. Frostbolts of Wintry Blast is really cool, as we basically have an unlimited teleport skill that can be used without cooldown thanks to our high cast speed. And Clarity is really important for our mana recovery, and since we cannot reserve it on mana because of Eternal Blessing, we will need to reserve it on life with Arrogance. So, how much does it cost to get this build up and running? Well, around 17 divines, at least at the time of this recording. You can even bring it down to around 13 divines or less if you buy a low wave with lower road maximum resistance, and Eternal Damnation with less chaos resistance, or manage to get a cheap timeless jewel that works. And the prices seems to have come down quite a bit compared to when I was building my character. For example, I spent a whopping 5 divines on my Lore Wave with 78% max resistance, but it seems that you can get one with only 1.5 divine now. If you are looking for a leveling and early mapping build and you already have some currency, you can follow the Twink leveling build on max roll to get through the campaign as fast as possible. If you are just starting out, no worries. I will also link a similar late starter build that utilizes Ball Lightning that is good for starting from scratch. The full passive skill tree can be found in the Path of Building link in the description below, as well as all of the items that I am currently using in my build. While I have done Sirius, Uber Elder and Maven on this build with ease, I am not sure if it's tanky enough for T17 maps yet. Honestly, I'm not even sure if I want to work towards completing T17s because they seem to be even harder than Uber Pinnacle bosses, which makes them really daunting for a casual like myself. Nonetheless, if I eventually make an endgame version of this build, I will put up the Path of Building in the pinned comment below. As always, if you have any questions or suggestions, please feel free to put them in the comment section. If the video has helped you in any way, a like and subscribe would mean the world to me. Thank you so very much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.